Hi, it's Reverend Dr. Nadine Rosechild-Sullivan, reading from my book, Passing the Baton, Birth Control, Precondition of the Liberation of Women. And I give a trigger warning on this one because I am about to discuss rape. And in this case, the rape of a transgender man and the effect that it had on him. There is a situation in which trans men, trans boys, or butch women, butch lesbians, anyone considered to not be doing gender in accordance with the way it's considered to be supposed to be done in the United States and elsewhere around the globe, can be subjected to a rape considered to be a corrective rape, to teach, air quotes, her that she's just missing the real thing or something. And so this story is called Misgendered, a narrative, and begins on page 166. I felt the first blow from behind. I had heard their taunting when I got out of my car, but it was broad daylight and I thought, just fuck 'em, and kept walking. Even though I was tired that day and I just really wanted to go home to rest, I had stopped for my partner, Justice, but to buy them a bottle of their favorite green tea. Their preferred pronouns are they, them, theirs. They were thinking the healing properties of green tea might be just what they needed as they continued recovering from the sore throat they had had the weekend before. The pack of late teen boys at the edge of the parking lot didn't sit well with me, but there were no other spots, so I drove into the open one near them and started walking toward the strip mall 30 cars away with determined purpose. I ignored their calls of dyke and bushwhacker, a little pissed off that they were misgendering me, but not thinking too much of it. It happened pretty much everywhere I went. My partner sometimes asked how I ever felt safe going outside, but it had been true for so long that I'd grown numb. I would go into restaurants and sit down for a quiet meal alone and look up between bites from some game or app on my phone to find myself actively stared at by one or more of the other men in the dining room. As I walked in or out of a public building, any public building, even my job site, strangers would stop and turn and stay stopped and turned as I passed them, sometimes rudely calling out, excuse me, are you a man or a woman? Apparently, despite my deltoid and bicep development, my chest binding, and my careful study of masculine presentation, I was still too short and round-hipped to fit neatly into their binary category of cisgender male. I was tagged as gender nonconforming, and people often aren't nice to those who queer their sex gender categories. But I wasn't expecting the hit from that board or the tumble of 5 guys at once. I can't go deeply into the memory, not because I can't relive it, but because I can't relive it. I mean, I'm not unwilling to relive it, I guess. I just can't because I can't remember most of it. I felt that first blow, and I felt the weight of multiple bodies taking me down. Then I lost consciousness. I have a moment or two of hazy recollection, something about them shouting, pull down its pants and see if it has a dick, and the sense of buttons popping as my shirt front tore. But mostly the next thing I remember is Justice's tears dropping on my hand and the bright lights and beeping sounds of my hospital room. Before I woke up, the hospital did a rape kit. 18 stitches, 11 to my scalp and 7 to my right forearm, started me on an antibiotic and post-exposure HIV prophylaxis and administered emergency contraception. They found semen from 5 assailants. The emergency contraception didn't work. The follow-up GYN said I must have ovulated the day or two before the assault, so the drug couldn't prevent conceiving. Pregnant. Being assaulted had hurt my manhood, my already fragile sense of self. I always imagined myself able to defend myself. And the emotional violation of being penetrated in an organ I didn't even relate to and had never used had been intense. But then, having something growing inside me that assailants had planted in hate, in the physical enactment of a hate crime, a corrective rape, Having one of their skeevy cells take root in an organ that shouldn't even be there took my sense of the wrongness of my body into a whole new dysphoric territory. Not only was I, as a man born in the wrong body, forced to endure the indignities of monthly cycles and developed breasts, not only had the vagina of this wrong body been subject to invasion, but the uterus that didn't belong in me had the nerve to respond like a female's and begin to grow the seed of my violators. The GYN discussed our options and then left Justice and I alone. Justice talked me out of trying to open the medical center's secured fourth floor window. Clearly, there was no possibility of my carrying a baby to term and escaping the pregnancy sane. Not only would I not have done such a thing voluntarily, it was an impossibility to fathom carrying the assailant's seed to term. Even if Justice hoped someday, after we were well established economically, to adopt and raise a child, the dysphoria simply of being pregnant, compounded by being pregnant by violence, was inexpressibly overwhelming. When the GYN returned, we asked her for the pills. She administered the mifepristone, and I went home with the follow-up misoprostol. It was the worst period I ever had, and periods have never been kind to me. Still, it was healing. Once the cramping began, I found myself grateful to, given the circumstances, have gotten the best medical care possible. I, a man, had not been forced against my will to become the mother of my rapist's child. Afterward, the importance for me of bringing my body more into line with the expectations of the binary world around me, for safety's sake alone, led Justice and I to rework our budget so I could get access to tea and save for top surgery, and as soon as possible for a hysterectomy. For my mental health, I had to ensure I could never get pregnant again.